I never gave it to her. I never really like shared that with her, but that letter eventually became a poem because it was 2017 at this point. January 2017, Trump's inauguration, and I found my mom making a list of all the things that she would have to ship to the DR should ICE come knocking at the door. So it became a poem that I wrote, or a poem that I finished, when I saw my mom preparing for potential deportation. And this is a poem that I always start my performances with because it really highlights the struggle that immigrant parents go through to help us succeed in this country. So I hope that you like it. My mother raised me fearless, and she taught me how to peel plátano without trembling, how to let the blade do its job without shaking. When American kids twisted my name, softened it, broke its sound, she made sure I knew how to correct it. Danyeli, the real way, the Spanish way, the Dominican way. When Spanish speaking teachers drowned me in their spit, my mother scolded me from across the room. And that's how I learned how to swim. She raised a swimmer and a sprinter, told me to never stay in places not meant for me, told me to never linger in dark rooms with men holding machetes under their palms. You see, my mother did not speak to me about sex. She spoke to me about fucking. She knew that to survive in our block, she had to punch the wise right into me, make a young woman out of a child and a cub, and panther way before the boys could, but often I was stubborn. I had too much of her in my hips, too much of her in my lips. I had to learn my lesson when I laid in the concrete, crying after a boy who did not treasure me. I had to learn my lesson when I couldn't go home and face her. I am 25 now, and I'm realizing that aunque me cueste, my mother is usually and sometimes and always fucking right. But don't tell her I said that, because my mother is a strong woman and she does not soften up to love letters or flowers, and there's too much anger and too much pride for me to tell her all the things that I wish that I could. But if my mother understood this language that breaks her every day, you see this right here is what I would say. Mami, I know I'm a malcriada, and my temper is three hurricanes in one, and the boy choose are always bad, and I know that I barely see you because I work so much and I'm out in the street teaching people know your rights, but you're home rezando that I come home at night, and I know you beg me. I know you beg me not to shut up cops or open my big ass mouth, but who else would do this for you, ma? You came here when I was 7. Brought me here a year later, worked 3 jobs and paid for college, and they stabbed you in the back, called me a dreamer, gave me DACA, and then asked you to pack your bags. So, mommy, I'm not. Put down the damn backpack, the port pass. Yeah, and I will fight and I won't let them touch you, mommy. Not now, not ever, and not tonight. You let this country break your back and gave your life to raise me right. You cannot, and we must not give up now. And funny enough, my mom has actually never heard that poem in person. No, actually, no, she heard it for the first time at my book launch, and everybody in the room was crying because I knew that if I ever performed that poem in front of her, I wouldn't be able to get through it. So at some point, I'm like, stop in the middle of the performance, and I'm crying, and my mom is just bawling, and my friends are crying, and the bartender's crying. Everyone was crying. So that's a poem that I always kind of start my performances with, just to kind of bring strength into the stage. So for the next but I think my book really captures a lot of this idea that immigrant love is special, loving in Spanish. It's a different kind of love, and that I wrote a few years ago, and it's called I Am Waiting on a Lover. And it goes like this. I am waiting on a lover, maybe a Dominican one, who won't ask why I am more fluent in politics than my math recipes, who knows better than to call himself Spanish or Hispanic, a soft man of color, who will burn the city down if liberation asks, who won't disgrace my name by making it digestible for an English tongue. A hardworking man with sugar canes for hands, loving with his mind and his eyes and his sisters in his smile. A strong man who knows how unstable I will be on days I witness another deportation or stumble across another hashtag. Perhaps he'll be a Black man who won't say dumb shit like, you ain't like these other Black girls. I want a beautiful man with kind words and honorable actions, with gravestone or with honorable actions, without gravestones for stepping stones from all the women he has destroyed. A man with hundreds of stories to tell over morisoñando con pan dates on my living room carpet. I'm waiting on a lover drenched in resilience, patience, effort, justice, a giving man who won't use my body just to please himself, consistent and transparent, who won't run when he finds some scabs are not yet healed, an understanding man who believes in my growth as much as I do. I am not patient for much, but I am patient for love. I did not bloom into a garden to give in to a man of weeds. I know exactly what I want, and most of these men are merely seeds. And we will love better in Spanish. When my heart does not get lost in translation. When I miss you, can't butcher, me haces falta. And foreplay is bachata, pegaditos, a your tía's cumpleaños. I'll have phrases like te quiero when I'm not ready to let you in. My stepfather will finally have someone to talk sports with, someone who won't break his spirit when he pronounces Lebron and Curry in his most Dominican accent. You'll join mommy in her teasing when she jokes that I can't even fry an egg. And I know you won't think twice about my curfew at 21, about the countless family holidays, about the immigrant expectations I should shake off but do not. You'll be kind to them without trying. And there will be a gap that you won't need to break yourself in half to fill. I carry my parents' dreams on my back, my love. Come here, lay me to rest. You've got the right language in your mouth to do so. Oh, immigrant love, y'all. Oh, you know what it is. And then this next poem I wrote because I was on my way back home from a bar after taking shots on a date. And I thought about how beautiful it was to love in New York and to have experienced New York City love. So I realized that I was telling my grandmother and the women in my family about this love, and it sounded like something that I had never experienced before. So I wrote this poem. I told Mama about you, and Nia too, about the ways you watch me twist and untwist my hair, strand by strand, knot to knot. We iron out miscommunications and unravel misunderstandings. On drunken nights, after we've conquered the dance floor, and my tempo calls your shoulder home, I kiss the feet of all the women who raised you. When that bar in Jackson Heights turns on the lights and the 7 train waves goodbye, we witness New York with a cocked head, unhook her hoops, wipe off her lip gloss, step out of her panties, and I am impatient. But you and your hands are not. You make everything water and salt until we are exhausted. And tomorrow is more sequel than question. As the sun strolls in, so do plans for tomorrow night and next month and the one after that. What part of the world will we make ours then? I don't have any answers. Yet I never say no. Okay, and this is the last one for my book, and then I'll go on to perform these spoken words. So here goes. Te amo. What a privilege. My parents passed on to me the only language they loved each other in. And here I am. passing it on to you. How does that feel? To be loved the most immigrant way possible, to be touched in two places at once. I love you. Qué pesar. Amarte entre fronteras, encerrados en este país y este lenguaje que todavía me tortura el alma. Algún día, el pasaporte de cielo atardecido. Algún día con la residencia en tu bolsillo. Algún día abordaremos un avión de aplausos y salpicados por el mar Caribe, el malecón de testigo, la isla nuestro altar. Haremos bilingüe este amor. And I wrote this poem thinking about the ways that like undocumented Black people don't get to take each other to each other's countries and to experience their homeland in the way that other people can. And I wrote at a time when I was wishing I could do that with my partner. And really like introducing your island to the person you love is the most, I find like it's one of the most intimate ways to love someone. So one of the lines says, el malecón de testigo, la isla nuestro altar, haremos bilingüe este amor. Because I felt like introducing someone to your country and your homeland is the most bilingual thing you can do. When you get to touch them in two places at once. And the place of them that loves within US and after migration, and the place, the child in them that loved before migration. So that's one of my favorite poems, but I will go ahead and I will move on to performing Undocumented Black Boy. And this poem, I wrote it because in college, I didn't really see a lot of Black undocumented love being written about or being spoken about within the spoken word or even immigration world. So I wrote this poem in the middle of heartbreak, trying to heal myself and heal my heart, while at the same time, as Black women usually do, opening the space for healing and to really make the space to understand that like, damn, like you might have broken my heart, but like I still wish you well. So I wrote this poem. This is a petty love poem for the last man I loved. You see, I am the woman after the girl talking, and you are no longer the light at the end of the tunnel. You're the tunnel itself. Let every woman before me and after know that I loved you into a better version of yourself, so you and they are all welcome. I don't love you anymore, but Black boy, I still owe you an apology because you were never meant to become an X, a crossroad, intersection of mass incarceration and mass deportation. You did not fly 3 continents to be called dangerous. So undocumented Black boy, I am sorry. I'm sorry that they use you for target practice. That when the guns don't work, they use deportation as an alternative. That they look at the rifle with xenophobia and racism and rename you 2 birds, 1 stone. But if I can make it a metamorphosis of every argument we ever had and every toxic word we ever whispered, I swear I'll turn them into love letters and I'll deliver them straight to the heart of every bigot who has never been blinded by the beauty of your smile. Undocumented Black boy, when they call your smile a grimace, when they call it talking back and snapping back, when there are too many witnesses to take your life, so instead they ask you for your papers, remind them that there's a Dominican woman you done did everything to who still forgave you. An atheist, you may believe her enough to pray for you every day to come home. You make the impossible possible. So how dare they mess with you? Undocumented Black boy, 5 years has passed and we moved on. Since I opened up my wings and let you go, but I'm still waiting on your call. The one that calls at 3 p.m. The one that comes at 3 p.m. when you finally swallow that pride and you whisper those 3 beautiful words that will crack me open like ice does. In New York City sidewalks, I slip and fall all over again. Call me up on a Sunday afternoon and finally tell me, Danyeli, I am safe. Don't you worry about my deportation or my death anymore. Undocumented Black boy. I still pray. Your best friend never calls me crying, sobbing, because a cop confused your hands for shotguns, your wit for resistance, and then called your existence illegal. I hope I get to see the day that another woman creates a child with your eyes, with your birthmark. I hope I get to see the day that you walk down the aisle dressing nothing but survival. Prove to me that prayer, you moving on, is you never having the ability to do so. So do so. Live, breathe. Because there's an atheist Dominican woman you done did everything to who till this day, prays for your safety. Whew. Thank you, y'all. That's one of my oldest poems. And I perform it a lot because a lot of, again, a lot of Black undocumented love does not receive the representation it needs. And at the time, I was going through heartbreak, and that was the way that I could honor that love. So the next poem that I will perform is a heartbreak poem, and I wrote it to the song called "Qué manera de perder" by Ana Gabriel. And at the time, I was moving by moving away from home. And one of the big things that stood out was the way that like my Dominican aunt and my Dominican mom woke me up every Saturday morning to these old, like, OGs, right? Ana Gabriel, Rocío Durcal, Miriam Hernandez, all these like OG, like balada playing women, rancheras, right? And Ana Gabriel, to this, I was forced to listen to so many Ana Gabriel songs growing up. But Ana Gabriel is, I have, awesome. So, sorry, I'm receiving a message. I see that I'm breaking up. So sorry about that. So yeah, so I wrote this poem to Que manera de perder, and all those moments that I would miss from home. So and I would do that for you today as well. Because I wrote the poem to the song. Can you hear it? I think you can. So here it goes. The day we call it quits. Ana Gabriel's voice dances around the room, y llorando con despecho, I undress myself from English and find Tia under my tongue. I search for my heart in a Mama Juana bottle, in Cuban cigar, and instead stumble across her disbelief. One hand to her hip, the other raised to La Virgen de Altagracia. And Mommy shakes her head as if to say, wasn't the last time supposed to be the last time? And before I can explain, que me duele como nunca antes, that you were a rare breed of kindness. Rocío Durcal y Miriam Hernandez enter the room and complete the Holy Trinity. I turn my head back and wail. Mourn our love like Cibao women do their relatives when they pass before their time. My knees buckle, my hands kiss the ground, and I offer my tears as ofrendas para el altar de este amor. Los santos join me and weep, and I ask them why I tend to fall in love with men more sea than sand. And my grandmother, the same woman who wished my grandfather gone so many times, she still buys a bottle of Fabuloso and helps me clean my bleeding pride. And when she asks if we're still friends, I tell her friendship is an open target and this breakup pulled the trigger. What we had, outlined by chalk in the 2,790 miles between New York and Los Angeles. Pero en fin, Si nos quisimos. Your laugh was a symphony of yes, and your eyes were wise, wise like Dominican mothers done raised their daughters in them. The first time we made love, before we dressed ourselves with the afternoon, you revised my writing, and I realized how wrong I've been about romance all this time. So even now, that goodbye rises over Times Square and finds me again in South Central. Remember that I'll still kiss the feet of all the women who raised you, that the shore is only shore as long as it welcomes the waves back. Así que como dice la canción, al perderte voy ganando. Así que anda a verte a ver qué encuentras y que te bendiga Dios. Woo! Okay. And the follow-up to that poem, and this will be, I believe, the last poem I performed, it's called I Do. And this poem I wrote actually to Adele. And again, I use music a lot to inspire the things that I write. I usually write with music so that I can perform with music later on. But I Do is a poem that I wrote at the time of mourning, you know, and at the time of letting go of love. And it was actually a continuation to Que Manera de Perder. So it's a very special poem because it felt like a reclaiming of the self. And this poem I wrote to Can't Make You Love Me, which is a cover by Adele. But today we're not going to listen to that cover. We're going to listen to Tank. So here it goes. Before I go on, I hope to make one thing clear. This is the first poem I never wanted to write. You see, too often when I write about love, I am emptying the drawers, and take it no return. I seek asylum in these lines, like my heart is a casualty of war, and I refuse to write you into heartbreak. One day, I was to build IKEA furniture with you, set your snores as my personal alarm clock, your accomplishments. I wanted to save this poem for you, wrap it in a white dress to unveil with your mother in the audience. I wanted a priest to be the MC, my mother, my hype man, the altar, my stage, turn my throat into boombox speakers and blast my metaphors at the reception. I was ready to throw anchor overboard, land in your arms and call you home, yet you sailed ship on your own. You sought the skies for guidance until the zodiac asked you to leave, to take on someone new. And I realized that the only fortune teller in this ordeal is the heart, and you can't make a man stay, even if the galaxy sit at your behalf. So that day comes, that you call out wife and your mother mija, yet I am nowhere in sight. And my best friend is forced to gather a congregation to sweep me off the floor, and our story is in my blue, and my strength is borrowed, and your bride is new. I will still say I do. Way best I do. Demand better from this day forth I do. Crumble today, wake up tomorrow and pick myself up. I do. Love me. Love me. Love me way better than you ever could. I do. I do. I do. Whew. Okay, y'all. That was the last of it. Thank you so much for having me. And I guess we can move on to the Q&A section since we have 20 minutes. And if we have time at the end, I can also perform another poem that is also doable.
Yay! Thank you so much, everyone. Give a round of applause again to Danyeli. She did amazing. Yay! Thank you again. And if you're joining us, thank you for joining us for Expresion Con Danyeli. It was an amazing night of performances, and now we'll be opening up the room for the Q&A portion. I will be moderating alongside Sage and Graciela, who, if you would like to introduce yourself, please.
Hello, hello. I hope you're doing really good. My name is Graciela Moran. I'm the president and the CEO of Associated Students Incorporated. I'm really excited to have you and all these amazing, empowering people here. Go ahead, Sage, you have the floor.
I'm Sage Kiner. I'm the ASI program manager, and I'm so happy that you guys all came out tonight. And thank you, Danyeli, for being here and giving us so much knowledge and just enriching us, like one of our students said, with all of your background, and you're giving us a little free glimpse into your life and how you really resonate with many of our students here. And so it was awesome. Thank you so much.
Now we're going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions. As Jacob said, don't be shy to open up your cameras, start up your mics, or just say something in chat and we'll read it out for you. So here we go. Unless
I have a quick question.
Go for it.
Starting off, kind of a lot of the poetry that you talk about, it's very personal and it's very coming from an immigrant family. Where even getting a tattoo is probably at the same level of pregnancy, right? How was it when your family heard your first piece of poetry? I'm very curious to hear that.
So I'll start by saying that my family has no idea what I do. And like, there's really no translation for like spoken word apart from like poesía oral, right? But like, they really do not understand what is it that I do on Zoom or like when I'm saying I'm performing. And I think the first time that they really saw me perform was during my book release when I was performing poems out loud, but also reading from my book. And my mom spoke on my book release and she said, you know, I heard this girl screaming in her room. And one day I walk in and she's crying and she's like talking to herself in the mirror and I have no idea what's going on. I did not know that that girl would eventually write a book from all the things that she was crying about in her room. So that's just to show you that like really there's really no understanding of like spoken word, right? Because it's just not part of our culture. I've definitely had some friction with family over my poems when I'm like airing out people's business, but really it's just my business, right? It's like my migration story. So it's a matter of conversation and really like letting them understand that like their stories are valuable, that our stories are valuable, and that people need to hear it, and that people need to understand where we come from, because those stories are powerful, right? But to this day, I would be lying if I said that like they really understood or completely understood what it is that I do. Because if you're not like a doctor, engineer, lawyer, you know, it's kind of hard to like for them to like really understand it. So you know, I at first it was challenging. I think now it's something that has become more normalized for them. But like even before the Zoom, I'm like, hey, and you know, at this time, please do not make noise. I'm going to be on Zoom performing. And they're like, what do you mean performing? Like performing what? Like, what do you mean you're gonna like have a show? Like what does that mean? Right. But I think a big part of my delay in publishing my writing, a lot of it had to do with the pressure that I felt from family, but also this like culture of like you keep things that happen in the family quiet. You're not supposed to speak about it in public or tell people our business. And really, in order for me to be able to become a writer and stand in my truth, I needed to let go of those things and really understand that they're coming from a place of fear, and they view the world from a place of fear and survival. And me, right? I need to move past the scarcity and the survival mode, and really like understand like these stories are actually powerful and they need to be heard. So a lot of internal work and preparing myself to get there.
Thank you so much for answering that. I really, really appreciate it. It's really nice to hear that insight and really see what's kind of going on in your mind as well. I believe there's a question. I don't know if you want to, sorry, there's a puppy here who is scratching, so if you hear that. So I'll let.
No problem.
Yes, we do have a question.
Yeah. Go
in
ahead.
Chat. They're saying, question from my friend who is also watching. What encourages Danyeli to speak so personally about worrying about the opinions of others? Without worrying, not about, without worrying.
I think a writer friend told me once that I was never truly going to become a writer until I stood in my truth, and until I was able to accept that once I published my writing and once I put my writing out there, that it can be criticized, that it can be put down, that it can be celebrated. But all those things did not matter, because as long as I felt rooted and focused and centered in my truth, none of those things will make me waver. And that friend basically asked, like, are you ready for that? Because if you're not ready, then you're not ready to be a writer. And it's something that has stuck with me since. And I realized that like really my vulnerability was a source of strength. And what many people are afraid to talk about and to really address in public or even within themselves, I was able to talk about and really process through poetry. So a lot of all those things that you kind of hear like, hey, why are you like saying that out loud? Or like I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't be like writing those heartbreak poems, you know? Those are things that I had to work through, right? But the way that I processed them, the way that I worked through them, and the way that I was able to let go was through writing and publishing those poems. It wasn't until those poems were out that I felt like this like relief of like saying, well, okay, it's out there, I can let it go. And once you reframe your mind to say then you'll not only be inspired to always write, but you'll also be able to be fearless when you put your writing out there. And you know, it took a long time for me to get there, and I started as anonymous. I did not place the name to the poetry, right? Like it took me a long time to bridge that gap and be able to be like, actually, the person who wrote those poems was me. Or sending it to my friend and be like, hey girl, this is actually like this Instagram page that you see is actually me, and I think I'm going to perform. And once I lost that fear, my art just kind of grew because I allowed people to receive it.
I have a quick question as well, if I may do ask. Personally, I'm not a writer, and I always wish I could be, but I don't know if other students of mine or colleagues of mine or peers, if you guys also feel like when you have a lot of emotions, and I feel like especially now during quarantine, you just want to talk to everyone and anything, but I feel like most of the time we're very lonely. We feel like we're only in the same place. So I've been trying to trickle into writing and stuff and getting my words out. Do you think that significant moments that you kind of talked about will change in the matter of like what kind of stems from it inspiring you, if that makes sense? Like if someone in the family, if there's a death in your family, it's going to alter how you kind of switch your writing, or you're going to go a different way of kind of expressing it. I'm curious to know the creative mind when writing throughout different times in your life. If 10 years from now it's going to be completely different, you think you're going to see a whole different way of your style kind of changing or evolving, or if it's just kind of how you going to present your writing, or if it's going to change, really, is my question, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't really, so I'm not the kind of writer that like think of the way that I came into poetry, that I came into storyboard, and then eventually I started performing in front of the mirror. And the way that I did that was I really mimicking a lot of the poets that I really truly admired. And I would go like I had this like this data entry job where I would just sit there and enter data, and for 8 hours straight, I was just listening to spoken word in my ear. So I think my brain kind of found a way to, like, whenever I was writing, to like put all of that together, and eventually I was able to like work on the tone, work on the way that I want to pronounce the word. I think it all depends on where I'm at when I'm writing the poem. So let's say heartbreak poems. I understand that heartbreak poems you can even have them be like really mad, which like Undocumented Black Boy has like that edge of like, I'm pissed at you, but at the same time, you know, I'm here with you. And then you have I Do, which is a completely just soft and vulnerable poem that ends up in a very, very like strong ending. And then you have Que Manera de Perder, which is like soft all the way through. And a lot of the way that I decide which kind of poem is going to be is how I feel at the moment. But sometimes I'm like, I start writing really pissed, right? I'm like, you know, F this administration, you know, I can't believe what they're doing to immigrants. But then what ends up happening by the end of the poem is that I work through that anger and ends up being like a poem about love, or a poem about my mom or my dad. There are other poems that I have that are very like just angry poems. And I feel like I don't allow myself to be confined within a style of poetry. I think by studying the poet that I admired, I'm able to kind of decide, after working through my feelings, after processing my feelings through writing, to decide what kind of poem is going to be. I think the first step, right, is allowing your writing to expand on its own and allowing it to go wherever it needs to go. I think that's also, however, why I have an issue, or why I sometimes not able to write in commission like when I'm commissioned to. Like if you're paying me for a project and I'm not really feeding the project at the time, I'm kind of like unable to like write the kind of poem I want to write. And it took me like actually being like hired to write something about a campaign for me to realize, hey, like, I guess this is not for me, right? So the first step, or like one of the first steps to really allowing your writing to expand, is to like leave it without boundaries. And that's especially important if you're a person of color. Poetry has been kept away from us for so long, because we are usually like expected to write like Shakespeare or Frost or all these like big like Anglo, you know, white Anglo poets, right? But really, like what spoken word has given me is the ability to expand and go wherever I need to go with my poetry without having to be confined to a certain narrative or a certain style of writing. Let go of the idea that poetry looks like academia tells it, or how academia dictates it should look, and allow poetry to expand outside of that. And that's when really, like, not only do you challenge academia, but you also challenge people to see poetry and writing in a different way, and you challenge yourself to work outside of those boundaries and outside of those restrictions. And that's something that spoken word has given me, and I think that's the reason why I'm such an unconventional poet in a way, where like I self-publish, I perform, and I'm self-taught. It's because I wanted my poetry to expand outside of what academia wanted poetry to be. So maybe down the line, I'll end up in an academic setting, who knows? But in the meantime, I feel like that's what my poetry needs to be, and that's where it exists. Dalvin said, where can I buy the book from? It is sold out on website and I can't find it anywhere. Dalvin, you are in luck, because my book has been out of stock for the past 6 months, and it is going, I haven't officially announced it yet, so keep my secret. It is going back on sale. I just received the book. It's going back on sale October 1st. For me, but it should be up soon. And you can find it on my website.
I have another question. So you mentioned in one of your poems the discussion on kind of the pronunciation of your name. I have that exact same problem, because Graciela, or it's cut into like Grace or Gracie, or it's just cut, right? At what age did you finally own your name? and without your family telling you no, tell you say this?
Always. I feel like, I mean, in the DR, I feel like I've always been very proud of my name. Because my name is a combination of my mom and my dad's name. And I was just from very early age, I was very proud of my name. At some point I felt, I wanted a more like American name because I felt like it was easier, but that was like really in the DR. When I came here, it was the first time that I realized that people would not pronounce my name properly. And I've just been, I don't know, I never really allowed people to, even as like 8, 9, 10 years old, allowed people to kind of call me other names or like bring down my name unless it's like approved, right? So Danyeli has always been part of my heritage because Dominicans have a culture of like mixing names and putting names together that are like for example, my dad's name is Danny. My mom's name is Araceli. So Danny and Ali. Then you have a bunch of other mixtures, right? So I always know that it was a big part of my culture, a big part of my heritage, and I basically never allowed anyone to correct it. I actually met Sonia Sotomayor at an event. She came to like one of my like fellowships, and she like came to speak to the fellow, and like I raised my hand for a question and she read it. And Sonia Sotomayor was like, okay, and she said in Spanish like, perdóname, Danyeli. And I was like, oh, okay, sis, we homies now, like, what's up? Right? So that's to tell you that I just been so used to like correcting folks that I'm just like, this is it. It's just, you can't really change my name, because when you do, you're making more Americanized, and the US history and the DR is not positive. So like, you can't do that. So no shade to anyone who mispronounced my name in the Zoom. It happens, but now you know.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions?
I have a question for you, Danyeli. Let me just show my video because I feel like I've been I just want to say thank you for sharing. I saw you when you were did that Valentine event with Yosimar. I never heard of you, so I was, really excited to know you had your book. I finished it in one day. So I guess my question is, are you gonna have another book soon? I know maybe that's, in the comings, and you're probably gonna say, don't tell anybody, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. Not a book anytime soon. I'm working on other projects for the most part. I'm like expanding to other mediums now. I'm going into video, so film and photography, and archiving. So that's like my focus right now. I think I'm going to do some more work around voting while we still can. But also in the meantime, I think I'm just focusing on, yes, writing, but for the most part, it'll be spoken word, and spoken word doesn't really land well on paper unless it's like a very specific kind of spoken word. So it'll likely be just oral poetry for now. The second book, because I am self-published, I'm just hoping that the second book will be with an actual with a publishing company, putting out into the universe, so that the next book will likely be about migration and about the experience of being Dominican in the Bronx and being undocumented and all of that. But I'm putting that out into the universe. Should it find me later on, in the meantime, I'm gonna like do the work. But thank you for reading Periódicos de Ayer. This book took 4 years and a lot of self-growth for me to even be able to publish it and get myself to release it. So, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you guys for having this event. I do actually have to go, but I just wanted to say that and thank you all for your time.
Thank you for joining, Alejandra.
Thank you so much. So I have more of a question, because I know you've done work with ICJ, I believe, correct? And immigration, immigration justice. I'm blanking on the last, but it starts with a C. And I know you worked with legal services for the Bronx. How special is that for you, giving back to your community, and then also seeing Congresswoman AOC really working hard for the community as well?
Man, like working in the Bronx was definitely one of the most satisfying things I had ever done, because I had done legal work in Brooklyn, in Queens, in Manhattan, everywhere, right? But not the Bronx. And when I was able to do that, not only was I in the Bronx, but I was also in the South Bronx, one of the most like marginalized, underrepresented, and underserved communities in the country. So the kind of cases that I was representing at the time and that I was able to advocate for were very special. Most of them were Afro-Caribbean, all percent were Dominican. So being able, seeing and experiencing the relief that someone feels when they walk into a room and they see a face that looks like them, that understands them, that is culturally able to connect with them, is so gratifying, because a lot of them are not used to that. Many of them doubted me as well, but a lot of them were not really used to being able to relate to someone in that way. And I think a lot of my clients at the time were able to connect with me in a way that really like helped out the case, because they were being so honest. And yeah, it was one of the most gratifying experiences of my life. If I could, I would work for the Bronx all day, every day. When maybe someday when I come back, but yeah, it was one of the most gratifying. And AOC, I think she is a storm that they were not ready for in Washington. And I'm very careful around like praising and glorifying politicians, but I will say that AOC is one of the only politicians that I actually genuinely believe in. And I have a long history of organizing and being used by politicians, and having my story been used for politicians and like political gain and all of that. So I have a lot of feelings about politics, but I think AOC is one of those people that I'm like, I see where she comes from, I understand where she comes from, and I also really relate to her, and understand that her intentions are usually in the right place. And she's a freaking storm. Like to deal with some people in Washington, like on the regular, and be able to check them in the way that she does, like that takes guts, that takes everything, right? And she's so young. Like this woman is like, she's like 30. Like to be able to do that at 30, 28 when she started, it's like, you have to really be courageous for that. So just grateful to have her represent us. I think someone asked the question in the chat. It says, what advice would you give to people who have stopped posting their poetry online because of cyberbullies or trolls? I guess cyberbullies and trolls as well, all the time. They have definitely hurt my feelings in the past. Block. Like, I think again, that's like what my friend prepared me for at the time. Like, if you are not able to handle that, to be able to take the fire, take the heat for things that you write, then you always doubt yourself. You always second guess. So there comes a time where you have to stand in your truth so strongly that nothing will be able to shake you. And also understand that like the reason why these people are able to cyberbully you and troll you is because they don't have the guts or the courage to do it in person, to do it with their webcam on, to do it with their picture there, right? And also it's taken a lot of growth for me not to reply back to those people. I will still say I'm still growing, I'm still learning, I'm not perfect. So I still sometimes go into the comments and tell them about themselves. But I'm getting better, and I think it's just a matter of like guarding my energy. I just can't even bother.
I wanted to ask, how was your experience when entering and when leaving Middle Ground on Jubilee? Like, how was the experience for you in general?
So Jubilee did a very good job at editing. It was like we were there for like 2 hours and a half, and they basically made 2 hours into 20 minutes. I think actually not, like maybe like 11 minutes. So it was a very intense conversation. When we first got there, we didn't know who was who. Like we didn't know. Ernesto and I knew each other, but we didn't know who was going to be part of who's going to be like part of like the anti-immigrant side versus like the pro-immigrant side or the undocumented side, apart from me and Ernesto. So we were just kind of all in one room. We saw homegirl, Jasmina, I think that was her name, in the dressing room, and we tried to like be friendly, and she like it was the stank face. I'm like, okay, sis. And funny enough, she was on the other side of the conversation. The experience was interesting. I think I had a chance to do something similar later on, but I decided not to. And the reason was this. When we were there, they wanted us to really talk about our personal stories and to really discuss where we come from. But those people were really not there for that. And I felt like it was unfair for undocumented people to bring their stories and bring their vulnerability. And the only thing that they like really like were confronted with was hostility. And just Mina definitely has some things she got to work through. But for the most part, it was a lot of education, misinformation, from a place of like whatever Fox News told them. And really, for me, what I think a lot about when someone is anti-immigrant, no one has ever provided me with a anti-immigrant argument that was not based in ignorance. And I think that was a big thing that like for me during the entire like recording, that I kept trying to educate these people on the facts that they thought were facts but weren't, alternative facts. So all these lies that they have absorbed from media, from Fox News, from these like conservative politicians, I was just trying to debunk them. Ernesto really brought his personal story as a tool of resistance and as a tool to like let them know like there's for humanity. We're not just laws or like lawbreakers. Like we are human beings with like feelings and stories and complexities. But they didn't show when like we had to pause because people started arguing out of their like mind, and like someone said something racist and we all like jumped up like excuse me, so all those things were like cut off. And that's like what a lot of people like don't show. And then they showed us hugging at the end, which like was kind of gross, because like just an hour before they were just like being openly racist, and it just felt kind of forced. So it's something that I just will not do again. I appreciated the experience and the opportunity to like really show, and you see it in the video, like how articulate, educated like the pro-immigrant side is versus like the misinformation that the other side is spitting. So if there's anything that I find joy in, was like proving these people were completely and incredibly incorrect and misinformed. So if there was one thing that I appreciated, was that opportunity to show the world how ignorant these people are. And really, it just comes from a place of bigotry. That's all. But yeah, would I do it again? No.
Well, I think you handled it really well. It was actually really interesting. And yeah, you guys brought in a lot of, you can tell because you work in that field and you have personal first experience, and also you're an immigrant. You have all the backup like credentials, I guess you can say, to fill in the space. And I think that you handled it really well. So, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was also entertaining. I did look back at it and I'm like, yo, like this is comedy. Like these people.
It was.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
We have Jesse, who's raising his hand. He has a little announcement to make.
Got a question to ask, actually.
Yeah.
Are we able to pre-order the books at this point in time?
Yes, you will be able to pre-order this Friday. So this Friday, actually 12 a.m. You'll be able to pre-order, and the orders will start being mailed out October 1st, October 2nd. So
I just sent you a text, Prez. Can you take a look at that? Okay, very good. All right. So thanks to Sage and President Moran, all the students that were with us today will be pre-ordering a book for. And so please send your email addresses to ASI-programs.
Okay.
I'm putting it in the chat, csusb.edu with your Coyote ID, and we will order you a book. Sage will double back and she'll get your address and we'll send everybody a book that responds.
Can we also communicate with the students who did leave as well, as they were fans as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, awesome.
Yeah, we have their information when they registered, so for sure.
How exciting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, y'all. That's beautiful. I'm excited. And if you send me their names, I can personalize them. So send me a list of the names and I'll be able to just like write a little cute little something.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Sure. Thank you, Danyeli.
All right, and I believe that's all we have time for today. I'm going to hand it over to Rosario, the other person who helped organize this, because I could not do it alone. So I would like to hand it to her to give her closing remarks.
Oh, before
take a picture as well.
Take a picture? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we should take a picture. Let's do it.
Okay. If everyone can and who can, if you don't, if you can't, it's okay. But
if you can join us, turn on your camera and just leave your picture on. But for those of you with their camera on, smile and look forward. I will take a couple of screenshots and share it with everyone. You can do the coyote sign if you like. All right, ready? Look forward, everybody. Look forward. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Take a couple more. Keep going. Keep going. Do a new pose. Do a new pose. Do a new pose. All right. Do one more. All right. Thank you.
Beautiful. Send me those. Okay, so before I let you guys go, so hi everyone, my name is Rosario. I work for ASI as a program specialist. And before we close tonight's event, I'd just like to invite everyone to fill out a quick survey for the SMSU Latinx Center. We're interested in your feedback as well as any other ideas on events that you are curious, like you'd like to see on campus. Also, if you're looking for more events regarding Hispanic Heritage Month, I recommend another link that I'm about to put in. And here, there we go. All right, so this link, there's tons of events regarding Hispanic Heritage Month. There you go. Events all the way up to October 15th. So I really recommend click the second one for that reason. I'd also like to thank Danyeli, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, hopefully. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate your time and your work. I'm really interested in seeing you grow from here, and I'm really interested in your work. Thank you for coming and sharing your poems, your spoken word, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of your work. Thank you again to everyone for coming over and just being a part of this event as a whole. It was really insightful. And make sure you guys keep up with all our social media events, just for any updates throughout the academic year. Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. This was great.
It was so nice meeting you. Thank
It
you.
was nice meeting all of you too. Thank you so much.
Good job, everyone.
Good job.
Round of applause for all of us.
And I'm putting Danyeli, if you don't mind, your IG handle. You can follow her at Afro Dominican Things. So I'll be putting that on here.
Yes, we've been tagging you all week.
I was like, we're gonna tag you.
Yes.
Keep on tagging you.
There we go.
There you are. So if y'all want to follow her, go for it. Perfect.
And with that, we are done for tonight. Thank you all who came out. Thank you
Thank
all who
you
enjoyed
all.
your poetry. Thank you for coming in and just reveling in what just happened. Wow, because there are some poems that made my stomach like drop and my heart fall. They were so good. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be seeing you all later.
Bye-bye,
Just
everyone.
Have a good night,
something real
everyone.
quick. I
Oh,
think
sorry,
Jesse has a
Jacob.
question.
There's so many things.
Go, Jesse.
Go, Jacob, go.
Bye-bye.
Oh, no. Oh,
Danielle,
Jacob.
so you said something in your conversation that really kind of stuck with me, and I'm wondering if I could ask for a favor. It's kind of a cool favor.
Me?
Yeah. So
What is it?
So the favor would be is this. Would you be willing to make a short get out and vote commercial for us? Because we're really pushing voter engagement really hard, so I was imagining just kind of like a get out and vote, then maybe like a reading of your poem, and then bookend it with get out and vote. This way, as we're playing it, students will be like, oh, what is that? That's fire. And then it'll remind them to get out and vote.
It now? Or I could send you a video.
Or when you have a chance, yeah, whatever feels good to you.
And how long?
It'll go on our Instagram, it'll go on our Facebook, it'll go on our social media, and then we'll add, all your handles on it as well. And just really to kind of like something that's eye-catching as opposed to just flyers, like some of that bomb that you were spitting.
What about, because I'm trying to, because my poems are long, so I'm figuring out like how long would you want the video to be, or do I just send a recording and then you edit?
Whatever. I mean, I
comfortable
would
with.
never want to tell an artist what to do, So I mean, just
Okay.
whatever you think works.
Okay, so how about this? Can I send it to you by Monday?
Whatever works for you.
This upcoming Monday, and I'll prepare something. Okay, dope. So yeah, so we can do it Monday or maybe Wednesday. But yeah, maybe by next week I can send it to you, and then I'll figure something out. Maybe like a go vote, and then maybe I can do a document to Blackboard and then go vote, or a short thing. Okay, let's see. And it also serves as practice because I'm actually doing a campaign right now for voting, so it'll be kind of my practice run. So definitely, we can be in communication with that if like Herbert wants to loop you into to our email thread.
No pressure. I heard you, and then I heard you talking about voting, and I thought it would be kind of cool, so if you're okay with it, we'd love it. But if you're not, like, I understand as well. Like, your time is precious.
Okay, yeah. We'll work something out, but yeah, I'll definitely send something over.
Thank you.
Do you mind if we take one more photo behind the scenes with the team that kind of created all of this event? Just for
Let's do
it.
Jackie she had a family emergency. So
Okay. Okay. All right. Jacob, you taking it? You got it?
Got it. All right, everybody record.
Ready?
1, 2, 3, smile.
One more. I try to block the trash on the
one more.
bridge.
1, 2, 3. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. We appreciate everything greatly, greatly, greatly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Danieli. I'll send you an email.
Have a good one.
With next steps.
Okay, awesome. Perfect.
Danieli,
have a good one. Have a good night.
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 Thank you.
Good night.